This is the Anderson Law Power Hour podcast here with attorney Tim Anderson. I'm Mark. The views and opinions expressed in this podcast are solely those of the guest and author. And this podcast, realize it's also for informational purposes only and does not constitute legal advice. Also, there's no client attorney privilege. Feel free to ask your questions. In fact, you can do them live on the air /Facebook here. You can do so. I'll give you the number in just a few minutes. Legal consultation services will be determined at the time of your appointment here at Anderson Law. Anderson Law is a firm located at 2492 North Landing Road, Suite 104 here in Virginia Beach. Online, of course, you probably discover virginialawoffice.com. Keep that with you, bookmark it and so forth. virginialawoffice.com. The call-in number, live, we got everybody here in the studio. Office/studio, ready to take your call, 757-800-1000, 757-800-1000. I actually do feel like I'm in the radio station again.
It sure does. We're getting back in the rhythm, right?
Yep.
So, hey, so we're going to do the Anderson Law Power Hour like we used to on the radio station.
Yeah.
You can call in today. 757-800-1000. You call in with your questions. Tara is on the screen behind us answering calls. So if anybody wants to talk about legal issues, we'll do that. So, all right, here we go. Lobby Day.
Hey, very successful. That was phenomenal, man.
Yes.
Goosebumps watching. Yeah.
100,000 people showed up.
Yeah.
No out-of-state bad actors in Virginia.
Right, good, yeah. Only one arrest.
One arrest, and
Yep.
you know, from what I've read about that, it was somebody who was wearing a mask.
That's right, yeah, the
Right.
young lady, yeah.
And they,
Ignore the police officer.
like
police.
3 times.
That's
right.
Yep.
It was like they said, take the mask off.
Yeah,
and,
girl
you
did,
know,
yeah.
And so it's like, look, I mean, obviously, you're probably going to get some clinked up if you disobey a police officer. It's
Right.
against the law to cover your face, and they said take the mask off, and they didn't, and offered it to him a few times, and they got arrested. But you know what? Even though that's an arrest, that's kind of like a disorderly thing.
Nothing.
I think we can safely say and comfortably say that there was absolutely no violence there.
That's fantastic. That's generally what everybody's concern was, and I know everyone has a varying opinion about Governor Northam and all that, but I erred on the side of caution. The state police have credible evidence, as it was brought out in that press release that the governor did, press conference, credible evidence, verifiable evidence of some groups who had ulterior motives. And I think, as you stated, and we all know, they would have brought a sense of disdain to the legitimacy and to what we were trying to accomplish with a peaceful protest and demonstrations against some of the House bills.
Yeah. I mean, there was people that were straight out arrested, in Maryland with weapons they had modified into machine guns.
Yeah.
Right, and they had 1,500 rounds of ammunition, and were purportedly inbound to Richmond.
Right.
And so they were, kudos to the FBI for intercepting that and making that happen. We saw that they got those people arrested, and who knows how much chaos those 2 guys
That's
could have
correct.
caused.
That's right. Yeah.
That could have turned a 100,000 peaceful rally into a massacre, right? So I don't know. I'm pretty excited with the fact that what we were able to do, which was so important, because it's a campaign of persuasion, right?
That's right. Yeah.
It's a campaign of persuasion, and we have the ability now to say, look, the stereotype that gun owners are violent or crazy, is just been eviscerated by the fact that 100,000 of them showed up, most of them armed, and said, hey, we are peaceful people.
That's correct. Yeah.
So it's a hard narrative. Gosh, we've seen protests, right, in the country. We've seen protests and people burning down buildings and looting and rioting, and here what you have is 100,000 guys and ladies that were there that all races,
That's right. Yeah,
all ages,
Yeah.
that came together peacefully, rallied. I think that there was a fear that there would be a bunch of people waving Confederate flags and trying to make a spectacle out of it.
Yeah.
And it just wasn't there.
That's right. Yeah.
It was just everybody acted very, very appropriately. So, all right, looks like we got a hand raised by Tara. Tara, we got our first phone call on the live broadcast.
We do.
All right.
Let me pass it on to you.
All right, let's go.
All right. 800-1000. Feel free to chime in with attorney Tim Anderson live here as we're in the studio or at his office with our regular Anderson Law podcast. Go ahead, sir.
Yeah, go ahead, caller. We're with you.
Hi, my name is Cal Johnston. I'm calling from Spotsylvania County near Fredericksburg.
Hey.
Welcome.
With the laws or bills submitted to change some of the gun control laws in Virginia, based upon the readings and understandings of the language, I don't see where if an individual has a restricted intended gun that is unloaded, but a magazine that would be in violation would be within arm's reach of the individual. Is there an intended violation of law?
Okay, that's a great question.
Good question, yeah.
Great question. Okay, I'm going to answer that. So thank you for calling in.
Thank you.
All right, so basically what he's asking is what's called possession, right?
Okay.
So Tara, throw me a pen down here. Just a pen so I can demonstrate this to the paralegal people, to the folks up here. All right, thank you. Okay, so I'm holding this pen. Now let's pretend, Mark, that this is a prohibited weapon under the law.
Okay.
And as close as we're sitting here, are you possessing this pen? That's
No.
what he's asking. Right.
I'm not in the possession of it.
You're not in the possession of this pen. So that's right. So this ink pen, which would now be a prohibited weapon under the law, you're not possessing it because I'm holding it, right? Now, what if I put it right there?
Could be construed that I'm in possession of it.
That's right. It's constructive possession because it's under your dominion and control.
Okay.
Right? So the answer to your question, caller, is that if the firearm that would be considered prohibited, which would become a felony to own under the law, if you are possessing it, that's going to be the violation. So you're going to want to make sure that it is, if there is a firearm that's prohibited, that you don't have the ability to exercise dominion and control over it.
Okay. All right. Yeah.
And that's ultimately what that is. Now, this is a squirrely law, right?
Uh-huh.
So this is a situation where we're talking about not just like an AR-15.
Right.
We're talking about a handgun that might have 12 rounds in it, right?
That's what we're talking about too, and that's where I think an abundance of questions are coming from, as the caller did mention, the magazine capacity.
Right.
If you've ever held a firearm, which I'm sure you can put one in the chamber and you can load the magazine to capacity, and that can often exceed the 10 or 11 or 10, 12 capacity. So
Right.
Are you in violation of the law because of that situation?
Yeah, every gun is usually something plus one.
Right.
And what that plus one means is you take your magazine, you load it to capacity, you chamber a round, you drop the magazine out, you put another round in there, and so that
Right.
you can add an additional round in there. It does not seem as though, the way I'm reading the code, the way they're writing it, that plus one feature would not, if you had a firearm with 11 rounds in it, that wouldn't be a violation, because what the violation is the magazine capacity.
Okay.
And the magazine capacity, they're saying, is going to have to tap out at 10. Yeah, anything else going on over there, Tara, or are you just reading the comments? Okay.
All right.
Yeah, Tara, if anybody pops up on a comment that has a decent question, feel free to read it out to us.
Yep.
Just raise your hand and we'll know what you're doing and we'll go from there.
All right. 800-1000 is the number to call in. Tara's right here with us. Here's the Anderson Law Power Hour podcast with attorney Tim Anderson. And we got to give you props. Got to give this guy props, man. You are the point man, so to speak, to all of this throughout the entire state. It's like, does that guy ever sleep?
I know. Right?
Oh, man. Wow.
So I made a what's next video today, right?
Great one, by the way.
And
Really
did you
nice.
see it?
Yeah.
You were in it. Did you know you were in it?
Okay. Cool. All right.
And so, a lot of people think, well, when does this guy sleep? But, actually what I'm really good at is multitasking. And I literally, believe it or not, Facebook, here's how I made that video. I shot 4 or 5 of the speaking videos right out in the parking lot of the Juvenile and Domestic Relations Court when I was going to court this morning. So I got to court about 45 minutes early. I shot those videos, no script, just shot them. And then I screenshotted a bunch of pictures from all of the stuff we've been doing over the past 90 days, merged it all together, walked into court, told the judge I was there for a case, sat there for about 30 minutes, was merging it on my phone. And then when I was done, the video was ready.
Well, you got editing skills too. That's great.
and so, a lot of the times when I do videos, when I'm in the car, there's a huge traffic jam on the bridge tunnel. I'll just pull over on the side of the road and shoot a video. And so I'm just trying to make the most out of my time, right? And that's how it goes. So that video might look a lot more more produced, like it was a better produced than
It
what
sure
it was.
does look good, man.
But
Yeah,
I did it
excellent work.
I did it in an hour sitting in a parking lot of the Juvenile and Domestic Relations Court up in Newport News.
All right,
So,
multitasking to the umpteenth degree.
Yeah.
We can learn from you.
my wife says that all the time. She says, you know, people think you do a lot of work, but it's really just you're at a stoplight doing that, right? You know, writing a complaint to Pizza Hut because our pizza was wrong or something. Anyway, all right, we got another question?
Mm-hmm.
All right.
Sandy on the line has a question.
Thank you, Sandy, for calling in. 800-1000. Anyone feel free to call 800-1000. Thank you, Sandy. How you doing?
All right, we're here. Got it.
Go ahead.
What can we do for you?
I can hardly hear you.
Hold on, let me see if I can put our speaker on here. There we go. All right, is that better?
Yes,
All
hello.
right.
All right, go ahead.
My question is we have rifles that belong to my daddy and my husband's father, and a couple of antique rifles that we've had for years and years. We don't even have ammo for them, and they're just hanging around. Are they involved in this mess?
Okay, good question. Let me answer that. Watch it on Facebook. I'm going to answer that right now for you.
Okay.
Thank you, Sandy.
All right, so what she's asking well, she asked a couple questions, but first off, antique firearms. So, by the way, you're an antique.
Yeah,
old as you are.
57, something
Yeah,
like that.
you're definitely in the. We're going to get you some plates for you to put on and wear around.
Right.
So what she's asking about is the universal background check rules, okay? And there's some exceptions about that. So if I have a firearm and I want to sell my gun to you, or just even give my gun to you, okay? You're going to have to do a background check, all right? So you and I are going to have to go to a gun shop. You're going to have to do a background check for me to give you the gun, all right? Now, if we're brothers, or you're my son, or you're my dad, or something like that, we can still pass firearms between us without having to do a background check, okay?
Okay.
Immediate family members, all right?
Okay.
And the other way that we can pass firearms between this is if I die and I leave you a firearm, even if you're not an immediate family member, if I leave you a firearm, then you won't have to go through a background check. So what she's asking about there is how how are these firearms going to be transferred? And the other question she may be asking is are some of these antique firearms wrapped up in the what would be considered prohibited firearms down the road?
Yeah.
And the answer to that question is really going to be, we're going to have to look at what the definition of an assault weapon is. But the assault weapons are going to generally be defined as something that is 10 rounds or more magazine capacity, or something that is like a suppressor, something that's a short barrel rifle, or something that's a semi-automatic rifle. So a semi-automatic rifle is not a shotgun, per se. A shotgun is something you have to pump every time you shoot it or cock it. But a semi-automatic rifle is something that reloads from a detachable magazine, is what that definition is going to be. So if it's a semi-automatic rifle, it has a detachable magazine, and it has some other kind of a feature or something like that, it's going to fit into that. So whether or not it's a family heirloom or something like that, we're going to have to still watch how this bill makes its way through. But for transferring it back and forth, that's one thing. For whether you can still possess it or not at all legally is going to be defined upon whether it's considered prohibited or not when the Virginia General Assembly is done. So the answer to your question is I'll tell you later.
Multifaceted.
I'll tell you later, because we don't know yet what the definition of an assault weapon is going to be yet. We've seen the House bill, but it hasn't gotten through yet, so we're going to have to see what that looks like. What I do intend to do is around St. Patrick's Day, I'm going to be going around the state doing town halls.
Okay, that's great. All
and
right.
I'm going to just talk to people about what the laws actually are, what they mean, how you can comply with them, what your options are going to be to comply. So I'm going to be doing all that, and so you'll be able to come to one of those town halls that are close to you. I'm going to try to do them all over the state. And then we'll be able to have those conversations a little bit more.
Here's an interesting historical perspective. I've been reading a lot about this. And back when the Second Amendment and the Constitution was written, it was known as a 22 repeater.
Right.
I believe it is. And if you might go back to the movie called Glory, and I'm kind of doing this off the top of my head, but one of the guys in the colored troops was reportedly a really good shot, that he could shoot fast. But the captain, played in the movie by Matt somebody, anyway, he said, you have to be able to fire this thing faster than just being able to shoot a buck rabbit or shoot a rabbit or something like that. And he kept fire, 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 fire. They had to be able to load X number of weapons, X number of rounds into that 22 repeater to be a good soldier. So if you were skilled, you could get off 8, 10, 15 shots. Past what we're talking about today, how prophetic that was, you know. See, I should be more detailed on that, but I just happened to think about it a couple of days ago, looking at this this book about the Constitution and some other things about arms back in the 1700s. It was a matter of skill.
Yeah,
it's a matter of skill.
Yeah, it definitely is. You know, I think that when you're talking about I think the conversation about what's common sense and what's realistic and what are things going to make us safer, I think those are all out the window at this point. I think that they're going to make their laws, and they're going to do that. And like I said this morning on my video, the greatest thing is that we can overthrow our government through an election, right?
Yeah.
You know, we just actually saw that in November of 2019. The Democrats overthrew our government. They elected themselves into office and overthrew our way of life in Virginia. And now, if we don't like the way of life in just 2 short years, we'll have the ability to decide if this is the government we want to continue under, or we want to return back to a government we used to have. And that's a cool thing about America, right?
That's right, man.
You know, we don't have to go in and take arms and take people out and do all of that. You know, we don't have to remove a dictator by force. We can simply vote them out. And, you know, when we saw Donald Trump get elected, boy, it sure ramped up the Democrats.
Yes, it did.
You know, I mean, we started seeing the blue wave and all that.
Right.
Well, boy, this sure has
man.
You know, done something on the right side of things. And what's really cool about it is it's gotten so much national attention that I think the entire nation sees now that if you have an unchecked Democrat, you know, plurality of government, meaning you know the House and the Senate and the governor are the same, that your state is next. And people, hopefully, are going to wake up and say, hey, I don't want North Carolina to be like this. I don't want, you know, Kentucky to be like this. I don't want Georgia to be like this. And so, you know, this is a very good lesson for the entire country to see what they've done here and what can happen in one very, very, very simple election. Just one simple election.
That's right.
You know, where 30 seats weren't contested, where less than 40% of the entire voters actually voted. They overthrew our government, and now we have to do the same to them starting right now in 2020. I mean, you know, 2020 doesn't change anything on the state level, but it is going to allow us to motivate and modify the Republican people that would be running for Congress or running for U.S. Senate.
Yeah, that's right. And you said, you heard it, those prophetic words, is your state next?
Yes.
Get involved.
Remember when I called it the blue flu?
That's right, yeah.
We caught Maryland's blue
flu.
Well, I'll tell you what, you know, Kentucky and West Virginia and North Carolina, you know, the only way you can get your flu shot is to make sure you vote. Right?
Bam! I caught it. You caught it.
So we need a, you know, you got to get a flu shot. You know, if you don't vote, this is what's going to happen. This is what happens in Virginia. You know, we did not get out and vote. We did not have the people. You know, everybody complains, oh, well, it was Northern Virginia people were pushing us around and the
no
Richmond
excuse,
people
right,
and all that. But the reality is less than 40% of the registered voters had showed up. And had 20% more Republicans showed up, none of this would be happening. We'd be in here doing an Anderson Law Power Hour about bankruptcy or something else that I'm doing. You know, I would not have been on CNN 2 days ago. I mean, you know, none of this stuff would be happening right now. We would have had 100,000 people in Richmond. None of this would have happened if 20% more of the people had showed up and voted.
Yeah.
And that's the truth, and that's the reality. And so the Democrats have played it well. They have gotten their power, and now we have the opportunity to say whether we like it or not. Now that we see what it is, and it will be inconvenient for 2 years, but it is a way we can take it all back in November of 2021. Yeah,
I'm still kind of leery, and you gave us some strategies. If these House Bill 61, for example, which one, there's so many of them, 561, whichever goes through, I'm still kind of leery of what might happen July 1st, you know.
Mm-hmm.
So you made a reference that if you have one of those arms that are banned, that they have to go to North Carolina, or you have to, what was the strategy? You mentioned that then.
Yeah. So, I mean, when we're talking about the prohibited weapons, whatever those are going to be, so you're going to have, to avoid being a criminal under the law, you're going to have to either remove them from Virginia, so take them to North Carolina or take them to West Virginia or Pennsylvania or wherever you live that's close, going to get them out of the state, or you're going to have to modify them, right? And so you're going to have to take your semi-automatic rifle and you're going to have to modify it to change the definition of what it is by, you know, it being a semi-automatic detachable rifle. You're going to have to do something to modify that.
That's going to affect the value of it, of course.
Sure. Yeah. But you know, the cool thing about the AR-15, for instance, is that it's a pretty versatile weapon. It's designed to be stripped down, and it's supposed to be pretty generic to be able to modify it and do what you need to do. But the truth is that, or you know, you're going to be able to register it, right? And if you register it, which they're calling it permitting now, right? They changed the word.
Right.
It's not registration anymore. It's permitting. The permitting is going to make it very restrictive for you to be able to use it at all. You know, if I want to take my AR-15 to your house and shoot cans on your property, I have to get your written permission to do so. You can't just say, "Hey Tim, come on over. You know, we'll shoot some cans or we'll shoot something with our rifles." I have to get your written permission for the date and time that I'm allowed to come over and bring the firearm. You know, I mean that's you know. So I'm over at your house and we're shooting guns, and your neighbor calls the cops, and the cops roll out there. And they're like, you're like, "Oh yeah, I invited Tim over," and the cops are like, "Well, where's the written permission?" You know, and now I'm violating the law because I don't have your written permission. I mean, it's so dumb.
It segues into the infamous red flag law.
Sure, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. That's alarming, really.
You got anything good over there?
I have a couple of questions on the live feed.
We should make Tara have to actually get on the camera.
That'd be wonderful, yeah. 800-1000, go ahead, man.
Yeah, if you want to call, you can call 757-800-1000, and we'll put you right here live on the show.
Can you conceal a semi-pistol as long as the clip handgun has a limit of 10 rounds?
Okay, yeah, so it doesn't look like the concealed carry laws are per se going to change. She's asked can you conceal carry a pistol still under the new rules? And the answer to that seems to be yes. Now, of course, you have to have a permit, and you get that permit by applying at the circuit court in the city or county where you live. And you know, as long as your firearm is not a prohibited firearm under the law, meaning it looks like meaning a pistol that will hold 10 rounds or less, then you'll be allowed to certainly still conceal carry it. So that does not seem to be changing. Now, it does seem to be changing that they are going to affect how our reciprocity works with concealed carry permits, right?
And still time for the Utah?
Yep. So
still February?
Yep.
Okay.
So I've been teaching. I've been teaching the Utah class for many years, and we want to. We'll talk about that here in just a minute. Go ahead.
About that Utah class, someone is asking what the difference is between the Virginia and the Utah class.
Yeah. Okay. So basically, here's the deal. In order to be able to conceal carry in Virginia, your first step is going to be you have to apply for a concealed carry permit. You do that through the Virginia Beach. Well, you do that through the circuit court in the city where you live. We're here in Virginia Beach. You do it in Virginia Beach. You live in Newport News. You do it up in Newport News. All right. So once you get that Virginia permit, then you're good in Virginia. Now, if you want to be able to carry a firearm into North Carolina concealed, then that's called reciprocity. And in order to do that, North Carolina and Virginia have to have that agreement. Now, we do have that agreement with them. In fact, we have that agreement with a lot of states. The reason that people are getting the Utah permit is the Utah permit is the second permit. You get the Virginia one first, and then you get the Utah. And the benefit of the Utah class is the Utah permit is that it gives you the ability to carry in 37 states, right? Now, the reason why people are talking more and more about Utah is if Virginia changes our reciprocity agreements and, you know, says we're only going to have reciprocity with 5 states now or 10 states or whatever they're going to say, then your Utah permit will allow you to still have reciprocity with the other 35 states, you know, with the 37 states you can have. So what I want to what I want to say is that if you are going to concealed carry in Virginia, you don't need to worry about the Utah permit at all. If that's all you care about is Virginia. But if you're more worried about being able to carry your firearm out of state, then that's why getting the Utah class is going to be something worth it. Now, I will tell you this, the Utah permit has to be done in person. You can't do it online. You have to sit in with an instructor. So, I mean, we teach the class at my gun shop, but Utah will not let you do it online, and you're going to have to find an instructor that's doing it. Some folks out in Western Virginia just hired me to go out and teach 25 of them. You know, I'm going to fly out there on the 1st of February and do a class for them, about 25 folks. And, so I mean, you got to get a guy like me who's a Utah instructor who can teach the class so that you can apply for that permit if you're interested in doing it. Again, you don't need it if you don't care about reciprocity, but if you do care about being able to carry in other states, it is something that most people are starting to think about because they're seeing they're starting to change those rules, and how those rules actually are going to affect our Virginia permits is probably going to mean that we're going to have less reciprocity with other states.
All right. This is the Anderson Law Power Hour podcast. I'm Mark, Attorney Tim Anderson. Thanks always for joining us. We do this Tuesdays about 1400 hours, 2 o'clock or so. Feel free to chime in. 800-1000, our area code here in Hampton Roads, Virginia. 757-800-1000. 757-800-1000. We can take you live through technology. Tara's here, and we'll pass the phone along and get you on the air with us here. Anderson Law's firm located here in Virginia Beach, 2492 North Landing Road, Suite 104. Online, virginialawoffice.com, virginialawoffice.com. And some good information now is into your YouTube page, which is phenomenal. All the things you've been doing the last couple of weeks. And so it's just a good source for you to have about general questions about the gun thing as we've been talking about here for the last 90 days or so. Yeah. And it's just on my mind. I don't want to seem like I'm badgering you, but January will be here before you know it, and we have to start preparing for that. You talk about the political aspect, but there are the pragmatic aspects of how we secure our arms and so forth. Right?
Yeah. So Lobby Day, right? Yesterday, it really ended up being more of just a protest day, right? Because there wasn't a lot of people that got to meet with their delegates, right, and talk to their delegates, and so that's great. I mean, amazing people. All these people showed up, right? But Lobby Day was supposed to be, and has always historically been, a day where you go there.
That's right.
You get to talk to your delegates. You get 5 or 10 minutes with them, and you say, "Hey, I don't like this. I don't like this," and then they say, "Thanks for coming," and and you go from there. Well, that didn't get to happen yesterday for a lot of people, and so what I did is yesterday, I emailed my delegate. Her name is Nancy Guy, is a Democrat. And I said, hey, I would like to meet with you, if possible, to discuss some concerns that I had. And I got an email this morning that said, when are you available?
Cool.
And
all right.
I encourage you to, if you live in a jurisdiction where you have a Democrat senator or a Democrat delegate, to be willing to make that trek again up to Richmond. Make an appointment with your delegate, make an appointment with your senator. Don't worry about the Republicans. No reason to go up there and talk to them because they're already on our side, right? But the Democrats, and you have to be, a Democrat is not going to want to talk to you if you don't live in their, their zone, their district. And so you got to find the zone that you live in, and you got to call your delegate and say, hey, I'd like to have an appointment with you. And they'll give you one. They're public servants. They'll give you an appointment to get up there. And it would be important to try to do that before Valentine's Day, because right around Valentine's Day, that's when crossover happens, where the bills go from one side of the chamber to the other, and people really start voting on things, and things start really becoming law. So we want to, if you can do it, really, take Lobby Day now, take the amazing experience of Lobby Day, and now follow through, right? Remember, you ever play tennis?
Yeah,
I can remember just saying follow through. Every time I'd hit the ball, the guy would be like, follow through. Same thing with a golf club. You got to follow through. The swing is the big thing. It's the follow through, right?
Right.
And, we've done the swing, so now do the follow through and get up with these delegates and senators and tell them what your concerns are. And, be respectful and be educated and go in there and say, hey, this bill says this.
Yes.
Like for Nancy Guy, what I intend to tell her is, I've had this pistol since I was 21 years old. So I've had this pistol for 2+ decades. And this pistol holds 12 rounds. And the pistol itself will be illegal after this bill passes, but this magazine would make me a felon. How does that make any sense to anybody? You know, I've had this pistol for 25 years.
Right.
This pistol that holds 12 instead of 10. How does this make me a felon? You know, how does that make anybody safer?
And you're going right.
And compared to making me now a felon, somebody who has no criminal record whatsoever, now I'm going to be a felon because I have this gun that I have had for 25 years, right?
Yeah.
And so that's what I'm going to be doing. I mean, that's the lobbying I'm going to be doing, is try to bring it to her in the, I mean, I'm not going to be able to bring a gun in there, but I'm going to be able to have the conversation. I'll probably try to bring a picture, you know, of it and say, hey, how is this? Like, have you really thought about what you're saying yes and no to? And, you know, what's interesting about the chambers is there's only two, they only have a 2-person majority in the Senate, and they have a 5-person majority in the House. So if I could get Nancy Guy, who won my district by like 40 votes, right? If I could get Nancy Guy to, you know, say, hey, you know what you're saying makes a little bit of sense. I'm not going to vote for this unless they change this magazine rule. Then, you know, then I would, you know, that could be a big win, right? But that's what you have to do. Now, you know, here's the thing, right? With these delegates, and you know, a lot of people think that they made a big statement by having 100,000 people up there for protests, right? But what lobby day is usually it's one person that shows up and they represent 30,000 people, right? Hey, I represent 30,000 people and this is what my group wants to do with you. That's what lobbyists are. You know, that's the definition of a lobbyist. And so now, just because a lobbyist comes into a delegate's office and says, hey, this is what my lobby wants, that certainly doesn't mean that the delegate goes, oh, okay, well, I'm going to do exactly what you say, right? I mean, that's not how the system works, right? The lobbyists have access to the delegates and the senators, and they pitch what they want, and then the senators and the delegates decide what they're going to do. And that's how our system works. And so, yeah, 100,000 people showed up yesterday. But that doesn't mean that anybody on the Democrat side or the Republican side should be changing course in any way. They've made their point, right? You've made your point. You've done what you can do, and that's all you can do. Now there's nothing else. And now it's just a matter of what are they going to do now that the lobbyists, 100,000 lobbyists showed up yesterday. What are they going to do now that 100,000 lobbyists representing themselves came up and said what they're going to do? What are they going to do? And if they go along and continue moving forward like it seems like they're going to do, then the remedy is voting.
That's right, yeah. Let me add to this, and I was excited to see a lot of the folks in Richmond who are hammering home the point that we've been discussing all along here. We, the law-abiding citizens, are not the problem. That's clear. And you can look at the statistics any way you want. It will always fall to the fact that, as you saw those 100,000 people, and I saw signs, we're not the problem, you're going after the wrong source here. What used to be in the military? You say, what's your psychological malfunction? You hear the drill sergeants, what's your psychological malfunction? And not being able to understand, this is not going to curtail crime. When we first started doing this, the Rand Corporation, and on the list goes, it has had negligible effect on reducing crime. How do we break through to, it's an emotion, it's a mental thing, it's a political thing, it's this, just their shtick, you know?
Yeah. You know, I think what the Democrats are doing is something that we see happen a lot in a lot of areas, which is called reactive politics, right?
Okay.
So you have a school shooting, and that shooter used an AR-15.
Yeah.
Right? And now the reaction to that is if we make that gun illegal, that school shooting would not have occurred.
Somehow. Right?
Now, clearly that's a big A, B equals C kind of an equation, right? That's a very big equation, because the reality is that that there's so many AR-15s out there. If you made them all illegal today, that certainly doesn't mean they disappear, right? And it's even more dumb in the context of that firearm is any more inherently dangerous than any other firearm. But anyway, so you got a school shooting, you have a kid who used an AR-15, you have a shooting at a nightclub in Florida and they used an AR-15. And so now the politicians are hell-bent on making these guns illegal with really no logical basis for it, right? A very bad thing happened in a very unique situation, and the weapon that was used was this type of weapon, so we now want to make this weapon an illegal weapon, right? But that doesn't equal that makes us safer, right?
Correct.
That doesn't mean
that
there's not going to be another crazy person that's just going to go in and do it with a handgun, or another crazy person that's going to go in and do it with, with a shotgun, like we saw in the church in Florida or in Texas.
Yeah.
And so the, like I've always said, there was a shooting out in Honolulu the other day. Did you see that?
Didn't see that.
2 cops got killed in Honolulu.
Yes, I do remember briefly, yeah.
And here's the thing, guns are pretty much illegal in Honolulu, in Hawaii. I mean, it's very restrictive to own a firearm out there. And every time that there's a shooting, I always kind of say to myself, well, I thought murder was illegal, right? I thought that they made a law that said murder is illegal. And you're right. To what you've said is that any law that passes this session is not going to stop a criminal from committing a crime, right?
That's correct.
And that is the bottom line 100% premise. Any law that they change is not going to affect criminals breaking the law. And that is where we will be when all of this is said and done. No one is going to be any safer because you've been regulated to only have 10 rounds in your gun, and I've been regulated to have 10 rounds in my gun. That doesn't make anybody more safe.
That's right. Yeah.
That's not going to change anything because you and I are never going to commit a crime anyway, right? So it's just a
reactionary. I like what you said.
It's reaction. It's reactionary. Now, if the Democrats were 100% pure about wanting to change things, right? They would really peel the onion back, and they would say, you know what, gun-free zones are dangerous, right?
That's right. Yeah.
And so the biggest gun-free zones we have in Virginia are schools. So we need to fortify these schools a lot better than what we're doing. We need to put metal detectors in them. We need to have more, more security in them. We need to talk about Anderson's plan to arm some of the staff, critical staff. We need to really be doing that. Virginia could do that. In Florida, they have a sign down there that says "Never Again," right from the Parkland incident. So they created a Guardian program in Florida where teachers can, some teachers can be armed and all of that. It says "Never Again." It took Parkland to make those politicians have an appetite to be able to arm, security staff in a school. And if they were really worried about safety and truth and protection, they would say, when a crazy person comes in with a gun, the only way that that's going to stop is by killing that crazy person, right? By shooting that crazy person dead. And the only person who's going to do that is a law enforcement officer or somebody else with a gun. And so the sooner somebody can shoot back at the crazy person, the faster that situation ends. And that is the absolute, if Democrats were really interested in common sense gun reform, they would say, we need to think about this. We need this to really happen in our schools.
It's the security of the institution.
The security of the institution, right? I mean, God, have you go out to the concerts, you got to go through metal detectors, right?
Yeah.
You go out to a concert in Virginia Beach, you go through metal detectors. There's armed sheriffs everywhere. They're walking around. I mean, you can't bring guns in there. There's armed sheriffs, and that just doesn't exist at any kind of a high school. I mean, you might have one security officer, one police officer there. We got a call.
All right.
That's that. So anyway, well, we've been talking for a little bit. Somebody wants to talk to us now. So 757-800-1000 if you want to be on the show. Looks like we have it. You're going to send it to us. Robert.
Thank you, Robert, for calling. We appreciate it.
All right, Robert, go ahead.
Yes. I have several suppressors. I obtained them legally, and as you know, they are extremely regulated. You have to jump through a bunch of hoops. They are expensive. You have the $200 tax stamps, and it takes forever. It takes a lot of time. And now, what are we supposed to do with them? How are we supposed to get rid of them and take them out of the state? Aren't they supposed to be transferred to another person.
Right. All right, well, let me get that answer to you right now. Thanks, Robert, for calling.
All right, thank you.
So Robert is asking about the National Firearms Act.
Oh, yeah, right.
So it is legal for Americans to purchase suppressors. But in order to purchase it, you've got to go through, and what you said is actually very accurate. You got to go through this application process with the ATF. Yeah. It takes about a year to go through this background check. Then you have to get fingerprinted. You got to get your picture taken, and then they send you back this stamp, and it literally is like a postage stamp that says you can own this gun. Your application is there, and they put a postage stamp on there called a tax stamp. And it allows you to own this gun or this suppressor or whatever it is. And Robert's gone through all that. He's done everything he's supposed to do. He legally bought the suppressors. He legally, got his tax stamp. And now Virginia's saying that those are going to be prohibited weapons. Okay, and you're not going to be allowed to have them. Now, Robert, I will say this: I would encourage NFA owners to go ahead and take the governor's offer and register those with the state, because you are already registered in the NFA database, and that is accessible to state police. So if the governor gives us the ability to have a permit for these suppressors, I would take him up on that if you are talking about an NFA item, because you are already in a federal database for having that particular firearm. Now, I'm not super thrilled about the guy who has an AR-15 who's not in a federal database for owning that, or a state database. But with an NFA item, I'm less worried about registering those, because those records are generally available to the state police on request. So that would be my best answer on that. Now, if you don't want to register with the state, then you are allowed to transfer. You can bring suppressors at least across state lines, and I would find a place in North Carolina to store them until these laws get challenged, or until we have another election cycle and hopefully get that undone.
You're going to be giving North Carolina a lot of business.
North Carolina is going to be the most armed state in the country, with people moving their things down there. So.
Yeah, see the caravan on June 30th.
I know, right?
June 29th.
June 30th, right? Yeah.
Oh, man, I'm just being facetious, as my teacher said. But we don't want that.
We have multiple people asking that if these gun laws are passed, can we vote to reverse them in the future?
Yeah, at the next election. That's the thing. That's what's great about America. We can overthrow our government every election cycle, right? And so if we don't like the laws that the Democrats have made this cycle and next year, then the remedy is that in November of 2021, you get your butt out of bed and you vote for the candidate running against the Democrat, whoever that is, whether it's a Republican, whether it's a Libertarian, whether it's an independent. You get your butt up and you vote for somebody other than the guy
with the D in front of his name.
With the person with the D in front of their name. That's right. That's right.
Yeah.
Now, a couple of the Democrats have broke ranks. And, maybe we don't necessarily punish them. And a couple of the Republicans have broke ranks, and maybe we need to punish them, for what they've done. They've broke ranks and gone along with the universal background check. So, so there is a... we have to be careful, and we have to understand who we're going after. I mean, if there's a Democrat that voted against these bills, then he may not be the one you want to take your rage out after. But nonetheless, yes, if you don't like what's happening right now and what will happen throughout this year and next year, your remedy comes in November of 2021.
Yeah, you brought up a lot of good points here, and thank you for your leadership, Tim, because we were all hearing when 2A Second Amendment sanctuary cities coming down, we saw, it was like a blanket unfolding all across the Commonwealth. Taking a look into the future, some have said that we are going to become a 2A sanctuary city, constitutional city, and some said we're not going to do that at all. What do you see happening with the 2A, with the Second Amendment sanctuary cities? Let's just take it to the level. Individuals accused of violating a law somehow, and the local sheriff and so forth, and they say, hey, you know what? We're a 2A sanctuary city. We're not going to arrest you. We're not going to take away your firearm. What do you see happening with the 2A movement?
Well, I mean, I certainly don't think that the police in any jurisdiction in Virginia are going to have any authority to disobey the state law. Okay. Now, if you commit a felony in front of a police officer, he is required under law of arresting you and bringing you to a magistrate and taking you into custody. He does not have discretion. Some people have said, well, a cop can pull you over for speeding and he doesn't have to give you a speeding ticket. It doesn't work that way with a felony. If you're committing a felony, you have to engage that individual. So I think that the answer to that question is, are the police going to go door to door? I don't think so. I don't think they have the time, the energy, the resources, or even a jail to put everybody in. But I think what's going to happen is a red flag law, situation. Somebody's going to come to your house because your neighbor said you're acting dangerous. They're going to come in, they're going to search your house, they're going to find a prohibited weapon, and then that's how you're going to get, clinked up into this system. Or you're going to have a house fire and the fire marshal comes out and finds this prohibited weapon. Or you're going to be pulled over for DUI, and in the back of your car when they're towing your car, there's going to be an AR-15. I mean, that's how that's how these things are going to come to light.
I gotcha.
And so, I'm not encouraging anybody to disobey the law in any way, but I don't see that any police officer in any jurisdiction, 2A or non-2A, are going to be going door to door looking for trouble. It's going to be just like it is with every other law. If the police come to your house on a red flag law and they don't find any guns, but there's an ounce of cocaine on your table, you're going to get arrested for the cocaine, right? And that's how criminal laws work in Virginia. All right, hit us.
We have Cindy on the line.
All right,
Cindy.
Thank
you for calling in today. Appreciate it.
Hello, Cindy.
Hello. By the way, thank you for everything that you've been doing.
Oh, you're welcome. Thanks for watching.
My question is regarding the proposed electoral votes in the state. How is that going to impact future Virginia elections? Meaning, is this going to give even a better advantage for Northern Virginia and the Norfolk area? How is it going to impact us?
Yep. Okay, great. Well, I'll get right on that right now. So not about guns, about something else. Interesting. So she's asking about the Electoral College vote. So, we don't really elect our president like a lot of people think, right? When I vote for the president of the United States, what I'm really doing is I'm telling my electors in that state how to vote for the president of the United States, right? And in Virginia, the way it works is that whoever wins the popular vote of the state population for president, then they get all of the 13 electors that Virginia has, right? So that's how our state works. Now, every state can work differently. Every state can, you can have a state like Nebraska where they do it by congressional district, or Maine where they do it by congressional district. But most states do it just like I described. So winner takes all for all the electoral votes. And why that's important is in a state like California, that's why California has 55 votes, because there's so many people out there. They always go Democrat. Since Ronald Reagan, they've always gone Democrat. And you have to get 270 elector votes to win the presidency. So a Democrat coming out of the gate already has New York and California.
That's right,
immediately. And that's like 85 votes, right? Between those two states of the 270 that you need. Well, what a lot of Democrat states have done is they've created this thing called the National Compact of Electoral College. And basically what they're saying is that 15, 16, 17 states are going to get together and they're going to say, in every case, we're going to vote our electors to the national popular vote, not just our state popular vote, to the national popular vote. Now, why this is important and why the Democrats are pushing this is that the only reason that Donald Trump is president right now, the only reason is because of how the Electoral College works. That is it, because Hillary Clinton won the national popular vote. Al Gore won the national popular vote. So in my lifetime, 2 Democrats have won the national popular vote, but have lost the challenge in the Electoral College because of how, like Virginia has 13 and North Carolina has 11, and it all goes through the state, and you got to win these states And if you win enough, then you become president. And, and it doesn't matter what the popular vote is. Well, what this compact says is that once enough states get together, we're going to always vote this way. So there's already 15. Virginia's trying to join it. Virginia would bring 13 to the equation. That would put it at about 205 votes. And when you get to 270, that compact will control how we elect our president. Now, is this going to be the end of democracy as we know it? Probably not. Because, in my lifetime, there's been multiple presidents, and it's happened twice that the president did not win the national popular vote. Most of the time, the president wins the national popular vote, and most of the time, that popular vote will, also line up to the Electoral College. But there are sometimes these anomalies. So there's nothing that is per se illegal about this in the Constitution, because the states can decide how they're going to pledge their electors. It doesn't say you have to have all the people in your state vote. It says the state gets to decide how their electors vote. So that's what she's asking about. And the kind of the flip side of this is what would be pretty funny is that if, in the 2020 contest, if Donald Trump happens to win the national popular vote this time, if that compact were in place, then California would have to vote for Donald Trump, and so would New York and things like that. And so it would be amusing, at least at that point, to see these Democrats who pushed this thing together where they would make their state have to vote for somebody like Donald Trump, who they obviously despise with every essence of their being. But it's not a good thing. Overall, it does give the Democrats an advantage. And if this compact had been in place in 1999, Al Gore would have been our president, and Hillary Clinton would be our president. So to bring it into perspective, that's why it's important, because we would have had Al Gore and Hillary Clinton as presidents right now, rather than George Bush and Donald Trump. Okay. And so that's why the Democrats are pushing it.
That was a very good question. Thank you. We go to the right guy for all the good answers. Appreciate you listening to the Anderson Law Power Hour podcast. Attorney Tim Anderson, 800-1000, 800-1000. Our area code here in Hampton Roads area of Virginia is 757. So 757-800-1000, 757-800-1000. And I want to go back to the Second Amendment sanctuary cities. You brought up some viable strategies. I think we all were kind of maybe daunted, but we were going to keep our momentum and keep our voices heard, because the conversation was that, they're only symbolic. But you helped some counties see the economic impact of that. That was phenomenal. It's like it gave us some meat, something to hold on to.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that the counties, the counties are going to have to jail these people and lose the tax base and all of that. Those are going to be big economic impacts. And I've given them all a plan on how they could raise those questions with the state of how are they supposed to supplement the economic loss of, one, having to house all these people locally, and two, losing the tax base because people are going to be locked up for conduct that would be considered, felonies down the road. I am looking more and more at this as, this is going to be an inconvenient next 2 years, all right? Because for me, I'm going to move my prohibited weapons out of state. I'm not going to modify them. I'm not going to. I'm just going to move them out of state. They're going to sit there, and then I'm going to work my butt off for the next 2 years to get Republicans back into the House of Delegates and get a Republican governor. And then in 4 years from now, we're going to work our butts off to try to get the Senate back. And that's what we have to do, right?
Yeah.
And that is how we have to take this back. We would have won any of this if more people had voted, but we would also have won if a couple of people would have run in the 30 jurisdictions that ran unopposed. The Democrats picked 30 seats because nobody ran against them. Republican Party, what the hell? What that you guys were 100% asleep on the wheel letting this happen. It's outrageous.
Well, no, that's an excuse, Tim, because we had all the Bloomberg money and California money. That's how the Democrats won.
Garbage. They haven't made a vote for it.
All right.
Yeah, I'll on the line.
Okay.
Excellent. All right, welcome to the show.
Yeah, I was just wondering, we have the upcoming SB 961 that defines assault weapons. Just wondering
What would it take to make an AR-15 compliant in Virginia without having to register it?
Gotcha. Great question. You're right. I'm going to answer that right now.
All right.
So what he's asking is that when the prohibited weapons ban goes through, how are you going to be able to modify your AR-15 to make it compliant? Now, I will say this is the right at the line of where I'm going to lose my expertise on this subject, because this is more of a gunsmith question. But because I do own a gun shop, I have a gunsmith that we work with, and I've been asking these questions myself. One of the ways that you can do is you can change your the detachable magazine to a fixed magazine. So if it's a fixed magazine, meaning that you cannot remove it, then that would be it. So that means you're going to have to solder that magazine into the firearm.
Oh boy.
The other way you'll be able to modify it would be to put a bolt on it. So instead of it semi-automatically feeding through the magazine, you could you'll have to manually with a bolt, take that through. That would require some milling, as I understand it. Not entirely difficult, but it's also easy to modify back. So there are a couple of options. If you go out to California, you can buy an AR-15. They're legal out there. But they are stripped down and modified in a different way than what they are here. So basically you have a fixed mag rifle. You have to top load it from the top down, and it only holds, I think, 5 or 10. You push those in, and and the whole thing is all jacked up and made to slow down the process, right?
Man.
It doesn't mean that one bullet coming out of it is any less deadly.
Right.
It just means it's harder to reload and do all of those things. Slower to reload, I should say. And so we're going to get to that. I'm going to get a gunsmith on board, and we're going to talk about how you can modify those. On the magazines, I'm not 100% sure how you're going to be able to modify that, because the way that they're talking about the pistol magazines is you can't have a floor plate. And if you can't have a floor plate, then you're probably just going to have to get rid of your magazines. You're going to have to get them out of the state. Now, almost every pistol, you can get a magazine for it that will hold 10 rather than 14 or 17 or whatever you have. So no matter how big your pistol is, you can buy some kind of a magazine for it that would be 10, a maximum of 10. So you don't have to throw your gun away. You're just going to have to get your magazines down to a 10-round capacity thing. And that's going to generally require you to purchase a new one. I don't think you're going to be able to modify a current magazine to be able to make it a 10-rounder. Got a question?
In relation to that, it was just asking that if your gun can hold a magazine that's more than 10 rounds, if that would be...
Oh yeah, well if your gun only holds 7, like a little pocket pistol, you don't have to modify it at all. So anyway, well look, that's it. We're not going to have our show next week, but we will be back here in 2 weeks. So I will see you here then. I hope this show was informative.
Always, yeah.
We will... Thank you, Mark, for coming. It was
Thank you, sir.
Great to see you.
Always great.
All right.
Catch you all next time.